My name is Lucas McLean, and this is Chapter 16 of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. In years to come, Harry would never quite remember how he had managed to get through his exams when he half expected Voldemort to come bursting through the door at any moment. Yet the days crept by, and there could be no doubt that Fluffy was still alive and well behind the locked door. It was sweltering hot, especially in the large classrooms where they did have written papers. They had been given a special new quills for the exams, which had been Bewitch and anti-cheating spell. They had practical exams as well as Professor Flitwick called them one by one into his class to see if they could make him a pineapple dance across the desk. Professor McGonagall watched them turn Mouse into a snuffle box. Points were given for how pretty the snuff box was, but taken away if it had whiskers. Snape made them all nervous, breathing down their necks while they tried to remember how to make a forgetfulness potion. Harry did the best he could, trying to ignore the stabbing pains on his forehead, which had been bothering him ever since his trip into the forest. Neville thought Harry had a bad case of exam nerves because Harry couldn't sleep, but the truth was that Harry kept woken by his old nightmare, except for now his worse than ever because there was a hooded figure dripping blood in it. Maybe it was because they hadn't seen what Harry had seen in the forest, or because they didn't have scars burning on their foreheads. But Ron and Hermione didn't seem as worried as Stone. As Harry, the idea of Voldemort certainly scared them, but he didn't keep visiting them in his dreams. And they were so busy with their studying, they didn't have much time to fret about Snape or anyone else might be up. The very last exam was History or Magic, 1 hour of answering questions about batty old wizards who invented self-stirring cauldrons, and they'd be free for a whole wonderful week until their exam results came out. When the ghost of Professor Binns told them to put down their quills and roll up their parchments, Harry couldn't help but cheering with the rest. "That was far easier than anyone else thought it would be," said Hermione, as they joined the crowds flocking out onto the sunny grounds. I needn't have I learned about 1637 Werewolf Code of Conduct or Uprising of the Elfric of the Eager. Hermione always liked to go through the exam papers afterwards, but Ron, this made him feel ill, so they just wandered down to the lake, flopped under a tree. The Weasley twins and Lee Jordan were tickling the tentacles out of a giant squid, which was basking in the warm shallows. No more studying, Ron sighed happily. Stretching out on the grass, you could look more cheerful, Harry. We've got a week before we find out how badly we've done. No need to worry yet. Harry was rubbing his forehead. I wish I knew what that means. He burst out angrily. My scar just keeps hurting. It's never happened before, but never as often as this. Go to Madame Pomfrey, Hermione suggested. I'm not ill, though, said Harry. I think he's a warning. It means danger's coming. Ron couldn't get worked up. It was too hot. Harry relaxed. Hermione's right. Stone safe as long bell doors around anyway. We've never had any proof of Snape found out how to get past Fluffy. He nearly had his leg ripped off once. He's not going to try it again, and Neville will play Quidditch for England after Hagrid lets Dumbledore down. Harry nodded, but he couldn't shake off a lurking feeling that there was something he'd forgotten to do. Something important. When he tried to explain this to Hermione, that's just the exams. I woke up last night and was halfway through my transfiguration notes before I remembered we'd done that one. Harry was quite sure that the unsettled feeling didn't have anything to do with work, though. He watched an owl flutter toward the school across the blue, bright sky, a note clambered to his mouth. Hagrid was the only one who ever sent him letters. Hagrid would never betray Dumbledore. Hagrid would never tell anyone how to get past Fluffy. Never, but Harry suddenly jumped to his feet. Where are you going? Said Ron sleepily. I've just thought of something, said Harry. He turned. Why, we've got to go see Hagrid now. Why? Fainted Hermione. Hurrying to keep up. Don't you think it's a bit odd? Said Harry, scrambling up the grassy slope. what Hagrid wants more than anything else in a dragon. And a stranger turns up who just happens to have an egg in his pocket. How many people wander around with dragon eggs? If it's against wizard law. Lucky they found Hagrid, don't you think? Why didn't see it before? What are you talking about? Ron said. But Harry cut him off. We're in a hurry, Hagrid. Got to ask you something. You know that night you won Norbert? What did the stranger you were playing cards look like? I don't know, said Harry. He went to take off his cloak off. He saw the three of them look stunned and raised his eyebrows. It's not usual you get a lot of funny talking, the hog said. That one's a pubs down in the village. Might been a dragon dealer, mightn't he? I never saw his face. I kept his head up. Harry sank down next to a bowl of peas. Check. What did you talk to him about, Hagrid? Did you mention Hogwarts at all? Might have come up, said Hagrid, frowning as he tried to remember. Yeah, he asked what I did. I told him I was a gamekeeper here. He asked me about what sort of creatures I look after. So I told him, and I said what I always wanted was a dragon. And then I can't remember too well because he kept buying me drinks. Let's see. Yeah, then he said he had the dragon egg. We could play cards if he wanted. But he had to be sure I could handle it. He didn't want to get her at old home. So I told him after Fluffy, a dragon would be easy. And did he? Sorry. Did he seem interested in Fluffy? Harry asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Well, yeah, that's how many three-headed dogs die and meet heaven around Hogwarts. So I told him Fluffy's piece of cake if you know how to calm him down. Just play him a bit of music, he'll go straight off to sleep. Hagrid suddenly looked horrified. Shouldn't have told you that, he blurted out. Forget I said it. Hey, where are you going? Harry and Hermione didn't speak to each other at all. Until they came to a hall with the entrance hall, which seemed very cold and gloomy after grounds. We got to go to Dumbledore, said Harry. Harry had told the stranger how to get past Fluffy. It was either Snape or Voldemort under that cloak. It must have been easy. Once he got in Hagrid's drawing, I just hope Dumbledore believes us. Firebeans might back us up if Bane doesn't stop him. Where's Dumbledore's office? They looked around as if hoping to see a sign pointing them in the right direction. They had never been told where Dumbledore lived, or nor did they know who had been sent him. We'll just have to, Harry began, but a voice suddenly rang across the hall. What are you three doing inside? It was Professor McGonagall carrying a large pile of books. We want to see Professor Dumbledore, said Hermione. Rather bravely, Harry and Ron thought, see Professor Dumbledore? Professor McGonagall repeated as though this was very fishy to her. Why? Harry swallowed. Now what? It's sort of a secret, she said. But he wished at once he hadn't, because Professor McGonagall's nostrils fell. Professor Dumbledore left 10 minutes ago for something. She said coldly, he received an urgent owl from the Ministry of Magic and flew off to London at once. He's gone, said Harry frantically. Now? Professor Dumbledore is a very great wizard, Potter. He has very demands on his time. But this is important. Something you have to say is more important is the Ministry of Magic of Potter. Look, said Harry, throwing caution to the wizard's professor. It's about the sorcerer's stone. Whatever Professor McGonagall had expected, it wasn't that the books she was carrying tumbled out of her arms, but she didn't pick them up. How do you know? She spluttered. Professor, I think I know that someone's trying to steal the stone. I've got to talk to Professor Dumbledore. She eyed him with a mixture of suspicion. Professor Dumbledore will be back tomorrow, she said finally. I don't know how you found out about the stone, but rest assured, no one can possibly steal it. It's too well protected. But Professor Potter, I know what I'm talking about, she said shortly. She bent down and gathered up the fallen books. I suggest you all go back outside and enjoy the sunshine. But they didn't. It's tonight, said Harry. Once he was sure Professor McGonagall was out of earshot, Snape's going to through the trapdoor tonight. He's found out everything he needs. Now he's got Dumbledore out of the way. He sent that note, but I bet the Ministry of Magic will get a real shock when Dumbledore turns up. But can we? Hermione gasped. Harry and Ron wheeled around Snape, standing there. Good afternoon, he said smoothly. They stared at him. You shouldn't be inside on a day like this, he said with an odd, twisted smile. We were. Harry began without any idea what he was going to say. You want to be more careful, said Snape. Hanging around like this, people will think you're up to something, and Gryffindor really can't afford to lose any more points, can it? Harry flushed. They turned to go outside, but Snape called him back. Be warned, Potter. Any more nightmare wanderings, and I will personally make sure you are expelled. And good day to you. He strode off in a direction to the staff room. Out on the stone, said. Harry turned to the others. Right, here's what we got to do, he whispered urgently. One of us has to keep an eye on Snape, right outside the staff room. Follow him if you leave it. Hermione, you better do that. Why me? It's obvious, said Ron. You pretend to be waiting for Professor Flitwick. You know. Put on a high voice. Oh, Professor Flitwick, I'm so worried. I think I got a question 14B wrong. Oh, shut up, said Hermione. But she agreed to go and watch out for Snape. And we better stay outside the third floor corridor, said Harry. Told Ron. Come on. That part of the plan didn't work. No sooner had they reached out the door, separating Fluffy from the rest of the school, than Professor McGonagall turned up again, and this time she lost her temper. I suppose you think you're harder to get past than a pack of enchantments, she stormed. Enough of this nonsense, I hear. You always come near here. I ought to take 50 points off of Gryffindor. Yes, easily. From my own house. Harry and Ron went back to the common room. Harry just said, at least Hermione's on Snape's tail. When the portrait of the fat lady swung open and Hermione came in, I'm sorry, Harry, she wailed. Snape came out and asked me what I was doing. I said I was waiting for Professor Flitwick, and Snape went to go get him. I've only just got away. I don't know where Snape went. Oh, then that's it, isn't it? Harry said. Another two stared at him. He was pale. His eyes were glittering. I'm going out to be here tonight. I'm going to try and get this to the stone first. You're mad. You can't. After what McGonagall and Snape have said, you'll be expelled. So what? Harry shouted. You don't understand. Snape is a hold of the stone. Voldemort's coming back. Haven't you heard what it is when he's trying to take over? There won't be any Hogwarts to get expelled on. He'll flatten it and turn it into a school for the dark arts. Losing points doesn't matter anymore. Can't you see? Do you think he'll leave your families alone and Gryffindor wins the cup? If I get caught before I can go to the stone, we'll have to go back to the Dursleys and wait for Voldemort to find me there. It's only dying a bit later than I could have, because I'm never going to the dark side. I'm going through this trapdoor tonight, and nothing you two say is going to stop me. Voldemort killed my parents, remember? He glared at them. You're right, Harry, said Hermione in a small voice. I'll use the invisibility cloak, said Harry. It's just lucky I got it back. Will it cover all three of us? Said Ron. All three of us? Oh, come off it. You don't think we'd let you go alone? Of course not, said Hermione briskly. How do you think you get this done without us? I'd better go and look through my books. There might be something useful. But if we're caught, you two will be expelled too. Not if I can help it, said Hermione grimly. Flitwick told me in a secret I got 112% on his exam. They're not throwing me out after that. After dinner, the three of them sat nervously apart in the common room. Nobody bothered them. None of the Gryffindor had anything to say to Harry anymore. After all, this was the first night he hadn't been upset by it. Hermione was skimming through all her notes, hoping to come across one of the enchantments they were both about to try and break. Harry and Ron didn't talk much. Both of them were thinking about what were about to do. Slowly the room emptied as people had drifted to bed. Better get the cloak, Ron muttered as Lee Jordan finally left, stretching and yawning. Harry ran upstairs to their dark dormitory. He pulled out a cloak, and then his eyes fell on the flute Hagrid had given him for Christmas. He pocketed it to use on Fluffy. It didn't feel like much singing. He ran back down to the common room. We'd better put the cloak on here and make sure it covers all three of us. If Filch spots one of us, our feet wandering along on its own. What are you doing? Said a voice from the corner room. Evil appeared from behind an armchair, clutching Trevor the Toad, his toad, who looked as though he'd been making another bid for freedom. Nothing, Neville, nothing, said Harry, hurriedly putting us the cloak behind his back. Neville stared at their glittery suitcases. You're not going out again, are you? He said. No, we're not. Why don't you go back to bed, Neville? Harry looked at the grandfather clock by the door. They couldn't afford to waste any more time. Snape might even now be playing Fluffy to sleep. You can't go out, said Neville. You'll be caught again. Gryffindor will be in even more trouble. You don't understand, said Harry. This is important. But Neville was clearly steeling himself to do something desperate. I won't let you do it, he said, hurrying to stand in front of the portrait hole. I'll fight you. Evil, Ron exploded. Get away from that hole if you don't want to be an idiot. Don't call me an idiot, said Evil. I don't think you should be breaking any more rules. And you were the only one who told me to stand up to people. Yes, but not to us, said Ron expectantly. Neville, don't you even know what you're doing? He took a step forward, and Neville dropped Trevor the Toad, who leapt out of sight. Get on, then. Try and hit me. Neville raising his fist. I'm ready. Harry turned to Hermione. Do something, he said desperately. Do something, man. Hermione stepped forward. Neville, she said. I'm really sorry, but you made me. She raised her arm. Retract the fist, she cried, pointing it at Neville. Neville's arm snapped to his sides, his legs sprayed together, his whole body rigid. He swayed where he stood and fell flat on his face as a stiff board on the floor. Harry ran to turn him over. Neville's jaws were jammed in together. He couldn't speak. Only his eyes were moving, looking at them in horror. What have you done to him? Harry whispered. It's the full body bind, said Hermione miserably. Oh, Neville, I'm sorry, but you made me. We had to, Neville. No time to explain, said Harry. You'll understand this later, Neville, said Ron, as they stepped over him and pulled on the invisibility cloak. But Neville was lying motionless on the floor. Didn't feel like a very good omen in their nervous state. Every statue's shadow looked like Filch, and every distant branch of the wind sounded like Peeves swooping down on them. At the foot of the first set of stairs, they spotted Mrs. Norris, cat, skulking near the top. Okay, let's kick her just this once, Ron whispered in Harry's ear, but Harry shook his head. Why? As they climbed carefully around, Mrs. Norris turned her lamp-like eyes on them, but didn't do anything. They didn't meet anyone else until they reached the staircase to the third floor. Peeves was bobbing halfway up, loosening the carpet so that people would trip. Who's there? He said suddenly as they climbed toward him. He narrowed his wicked black eyes. Now if you're there, even if you can't see you, are you a ghoulie or a ghostie, or a wee student bestie? He rose up in the air and floated there, squinting at them. Should call Filch, I should go. I should. If something's creeping around unseen. Harry had a sudden idea. Peeves, he said in a hoarse whisper. The Bloody Baron has his own reasons for being invisible. Peeves almost fell out of the air in shock. He caught himself in time and hovered about a foot off the stairs. I'm sorry, your bloodiness, Mr. Baron, sir, she said gravely. My mistake. I didn't see you, of course. I didn't. You're invisible. I forgive old Peeves is a little jokester. I have business here, Peeves, croaked Harry. Stay away from this place tonight. I will, sir. I most certainly will, said Peeves, raising up in the air again. I hope your business goes well, Baron. I will not bother you. And he scooted off. Brilliant, Harry, whispered Ron. A few seconds later, they were outside the door in the floor corridor, and the door was already ajar. Well, there you are, said Harry quietly. Snape's already got past Fluffy. Seeing the open door somehow seemed to impress upon all three of them what was facing them. Underneath the cloak, Harry turned to the other two. If you want to get back, I won't blame you, he said. You can take the cloak. I won't need it now. Don't be stupid, said Ron. We're coming, said Hermione. Harry pushed the door open. As the door creaked, a low rumbling growl met their ears. All three of the dogs' noses sniffed madly in their direction, even though it couldn't see them. What's that at their feet? Hermione whispered. Looks like a heart, said Ron. They must have left it here. It must have woke up the moment you stopped playing. Well, here it goes. He put Hagrid's flute up to his lips and blew. Sorry. And blew. It wasn't really a tune, but for the first note, the B-sides began to droop. Harry hardly drew breath. Slowly the dog's growls increased. It trotted off his paws and fell to its knees. Then it slumped on the ground, fast asleep. Keep playing, Ron warned Harry. As they slipped out of the cloak, they crept toward the trap door. I could feel the dog's hot, smelly breath as they approached their giant heads. I think we'll be able to pull the door open, said Ron, peering over the dog's back. Who wants to go first? Hermione? No, I don't. All right, said Ron, gritted, and his teeth stepped carefully over his dog's leg. He bent and pulled the ring off the trapdoor, which swung and open. What can you see? Said Hermione anxiously. Nothing, just black. There's no way of climbing down. We'll just never have to drop. Harry, who was still playing the flute, waved at Ron to get to his attention, and pointing at himself. You want to go first? Are you sure? Said Ron. I don't know. How can this thing go? Give me the flute, said Hermione, so she can keep him asleep. Harry handed the flute over, and in a few seconds' silence, the dog growled and it twitched, but the moment Hermione began to play, it went full and back into a deep sleep. Harry climbed over it and looked down as though the trapdoor, there was no sign of a bottom. He lowered himself through the hole until he was hanging on his fingertips, and then he looked at Ron. If anything happens to me, don't follow. Go straight to the Owlie and send Hagrid to Dumbledore. Right? Right, said Ron. See you in a minute, I hope. And Harry let go. Cold damp air rushed past him as he fell down with a flump and a funny muffled sort of thump as he landed on something soft. He sat and felt his eyes not used to the gloom. He felt as only he was sitting on some sort of plant. It's okay, he called up to the light. To seize up postage stamps. Ron followed right away. He landed sprawled next to Harry. What's this stuff? Were his first words. Don't know, some sort of plaything. I suppose it's supposed to break the fall. Come on, Hermione. Just some music stuff. There was a loud bark from the dog. But Hermione already jumped. She landed on Harry's other side. It must be miles under the school, she said. Lucky this plane thing, he's really here, said Ron. Lucky, shrieked Hermione. Look at you both. She leapt and struggled toward the damp wall. She had struggled. The moment she had landed, a plant started to twist snake-like tendrils around her ankles. As for Harry and Ron, their legs had already been bound tightly in long creepers without their noticing. Hermione had managed to free herself before the plant got a firm grip over her. Now she watched in the horror as the two boys fought to pull the plant off them. But the more they strained against it, the tighter and faster the plant wound around them. Stop moving, said Hermione ordered. I know what this is. It's a devil's snare. Oh, I'm glad to know what it's called. That's a great help, snarled Ron, leaning back, trying to stop the plant from curling around its neck. Shut up, I'm trying to remember how to kill it, said Hermione. Well, hurry up, I can't breathe, Harry gasped, wrestling with it curled over his, around his chest. Devil's snare, what did Professor Sprout say? It likes the dark and the damp, so light a fire. Harry choked. Yes, of course, but there's no wood, Harry replied. Ringing your alarm. Have you gone mad, Ron bellowed? Are you a witch or not? All right, said Hermione, as she whipped around out her own wand, waved it, and muttered something inside jet of the same bluebell flame she used on Snape at the plant. In a matter of seconds, two boys felt loosening the grips as it cringed away from the light and the warmth, dark wiggling and flailing and unraveling itself from their bodies, and they were able to pull free. Lucky you pay attention in herbology, Hermione, said Harry, as he joined her by the wall, wiping sweat off his face. Yeah, said Ron. You're lucky Harry doesn't lose his head in a crisis. There's no wood, honestly. This way, said Harry, pointing down a stone passageway, which was the only way forward. All they could hear, apart from footsteps, was a gentle drip of water trickling down the walls. The passageway sloped downward, and Harry was reminded of Gringotts with an unprecedented jolt of the heart. He remembered the dragons. Said to be guarding Walton Wizard's banks. If they met a dragon, a fully grown dragon, Norbert had been bad enough. Can you hear something? Ron whispered. Harry listened. A sort of rustling and clinking seemed to be coming from up ahead. You think it's a ghost? I don't know. There's like wings to me. There's light ahead. I could see something moving. They reached the end of the passageway and saw before them was a brilliant lit chamber, ceiling archway high above them. It was full of small jewel birds fluttering and tumbling all around one. On the opposite side of the chamber was a heavy wooden door. Do you think they'll attack us if we cross the room? Said Harry. Probably. They don't look very vicious. But I suppose if they'll swoop down at once, well, there's no other choice. I'll run. He took deep breaths, covered his face in his arms, and then sprinted across the room. He expected to feel sharp beaks and claws tearing at him in any second, but nothing had happened. He had reached the door untouched. He pulled the handle, but it was locked. Two others followed them. They tugged and heaved at the door, but it wouldn't budge, not even when Hermione tried her Alcormia charm. Now what? Said Ron. These birds, they can't just be here for decoration, said Hermione. They watched the birds soaring overhead, glittering. They're not birds, Harry said smiling. They're keys, winged keys. Look carefully. So that must mean... He looked around the chamber while the other two squinted up at the flock of keys. Yes, look at broomsticks. You've got to catch the key to the door. But there are hundreds of them. Ron examined the lock on the door. We're looking for a big old-fashioned one, probably silver on the handle, like the handle. They each seized a broomstick and they kicked off into the air, soaring into the Midwest with a cloud of keys. They grabbed and snatched, but the bewitched keys darted and dived so quickly it was almost impossible to catch one. Not for nothing, though. Harry was the youngest seeker in a century. He had a knack for spotting things that other people didn't. After a moment's weaving about through the world of rainbow feathers, he noticed a large silver key that had a bent wing, as if it already had been caught and stuffed roughly into the keyhole. That one, he called to the others. That big one, there, with blue wings. When the feathers all crumbled on one side, Ron went speeding in the direction that Harry was pointing, crashed into the ceiling, and nearly fell off his broom. We've got to close in, Harry called, not taking his eyes off the key without the damage being. Ron, come at from above, Hermione, stay below, and stop it from going down. I'll try to catch her. And it right down. Ron dashed. Hermione rocketed upward. The key dodged them both somehow. Harry streaked after it, sped toward the hall, Harry leaned forward with a nasty crunching noise, pinned it against the stone with one hand. Harry and Ron and Hermione's cheers echoed through the high chamber. They landed quickly. Harry ran to the door, the key swinging in his hand. He rammed into the lock. It turned. It worked. Excuse me. The moment the lock clicked open, the key took a flight again, looking very battered. Now that it had been caught twice. Ready, Harry? Asked the other two. Stand on the door handle. They nodded. He pulled the door open. The next chamber was so dark they couldn't see anything at all. But it stepped right into light. It suddenly flooded the room to reveal the astonishing sight. They were standing on the edge of a huge chessboard. Behind the black chessmen, which were all taller and were all carved from what looked like black stones, facing them way across the chamber were the white pieces. Harry and Ron and Hermione shivered slightly. The towering white chessmen had no faces. "Now what do we do?" Harry whispered. "It's obvious, isn't it?" said Ron. "We gotta play our way through, across the room." Behind the white pieces, you could see another door. "How?" said Hermione. "I think," said Ron, "we're going to have to be chessmen." He walked up to a black knight, put his hand out to touch the knight's horse. At once, the stone sprang to life. His horse pawed the ground, and the knight turned his illuminated head to look down at Ron. Do we, have to join the game to get across?" The black knight nodded. Ron turned to the other two. "This needs thinking about," he said. "I suppose we've got to take place from 3 of the black pieces." Harry and Hermione stayed quiet, watched Ron think. Finally he said, "Now, don't be offended or anything, but neither of you are that good at chess." "We're not offended," said Harry quickly. "Just tell us what to do." "Well, Harry, take that place of that bishop, and Hermione, you must go there instead of that castle." "What about you?" "I'm going to be the knight." "Going to be a knight," said Ron. The chessmen did help me listen, because at these words a knight, a bishop, and the castle turned their backs, and the white pieces walked off the board, leaving 3 empty squares. But Harry and Ron, Hermione took. "White always plays first in chess," said Ron, peering across the board. "Yes, look." A white pawn had moved forward 2 squares. Ron started to direct the black pieces. They moved slightly wherever he sent them. Harry's knees were trembling. What if they lost? Harry moved diagonally 4 squares to the right. The first real shock came when the other knight was taken. The white queen smashed him on the floor and dragged him off the board. He lay quietly still, face down. "Had to let that happen," said Ron, looking shaken. "Leaves you free to take that bishop." Hermione, go on. Every time one of their men was lost, the white pieces showed no mercy. As soon as there's a huddle of limp black players that slumped along the wall. Twice Ron had noticed that Harry and Hermione were in danger. He himself darted around the board, taking almost as many white pieces as they had lost black ones. "We're nearly there," he muttered suddenly. Let me think. The white queen turned her face blank toward him. "Yes," said Ron softly. "It's the only way. I've got to be taken." "No!" shouted Harry and Hermione. "That's chess," snapped Ron. "You've got to make some sacrifices. I'll make my moves. She'll take me. That leaves you free to checkmate the king, Harry." "But do you want to stop Snape or not, Ron?" "Look, if you don't hurry up, he'll already have that stone. There was no other alternative." "Ready?" Ron called, his face pale but determined. "Here I go. No, don't hang around once you've won." He stepped forward at the white queen pounced. He struck Ron hard across the head with the stone arm, and he crashed down to the floor. Hit Hermione's queen, but stayed on the square. The white queen dragged Ron to the side. He looked as if he'd been knocked out. Shaking, Harry moved 3 spaces to the left. The white king took off his crown and threw at Harry's feet. They had won. Chessmen parted, bowed, leaving the room ahead clear. For one last desperate look, batter on, Harry and Hermione charged through the door up to the knight. "What if he'll be all right," said Harry, trying to convince himself. "What do you reckon next?" We've had Sprouts, and now it's Devil Snare. Flitwick put charms on the keys. Professor McGonagall transfigured the chessmen to make them alive. Leaves Quirrell's spell, and Snape's. They reached another door. All right, Harry whispered. Go on. He pushed it open. The disgusting smell filled their nostrils, making them both pull up their noses and the noses. Eyes watering, they saw flat on the floor them a troll even larger than the one they had tracked, with a cold, bloody lump on its head. Well, I'm glad we didn't have to fight that one, Harry whispered, as he stepped carefully over one of its massive legs. Come on, I can't breathe. He pulled that door open next, both of them hardly daring to look what had come next. But there was nothing very frightening. There was just a table with 7 different shaped bottles standing in a line. Snape's, said Harry. What do we have to do? They stepped over the threshold, and immediately a fire sprang up behind them in the doorway. It wasn't an ordinary fire either. Purple at the same instant, black flames that shot up at the doorway, leaning toward. They were trapped. Look, Hermione sneezed. Roll of paper lying next to the bottles. Harry looked over his shoulder to read it. Danger lies before you, while safety lies. 2 of us will help you, whichever you would find. 1 among us 7 will let you move ahead. Another will transport the drinker back instead. 2 among our number will only need wine. 3 of us are killers, waiting hidden in line. Choose unless you wish to stay here forever. To help in your choice, we gave these clues for first. However slyly the potion tries to hide, you will always find some on Nettle Wine's left side. Second different are those who stand at the other end, but if you don't move forward, neither is your friend. Third, as you see clearly, all are different size. Neither dwarf nor giant holds a death in their insides. Fourth, the second left, and the second on the right are twins. Once you taste them, they're different at first sight. Hermione let out a great sigh. Harry, amazed, and saw she was smiling. That's the thing he felt like doing. Brilliant, said Hermione. This isn't magic, it's logic. It's a puzzle. A lot of the greatest wizards haven't got an ounce of logic. They'd be stuck here forever. But so will we, won't we? Of course not, said Hermione. Everything we need is here on this paper. 7 bottles. There are 3 potions. 2 are wine. 1 will get us safely through the black fire. 1 will get us back through the purple. But how do we know which not to drink? Give me a minute, real quick, please. Hermione read the paper several times. She walked up and down the line the bottles, much as herself and pointing them. At last, she clapped her hands. Got it, she said. Small bottle will get us through the black fire toward the stone. Harry looked at the tiny bottle. There's only enough for 1 of us, he said. That's hardly 1 to swallow. They looked at each other. Which one will get you through the purple flames? Hermione pointed at the rounded bottle on the right. You drink that. No. Get back and get run. Grab brooms from the flying key room. They'll get you out of the trapdoor and past Fluffy. Go straight to the Owlery and send Hedwig to Dumbledore. We need him. I might be able to hold Snape off for a while, but I'm not no match for him. Really? But Harry, what if you know who's with him? Well, I was lucky once, wasn't I? Said Harry, pointing his scar. I might get lucky again. Hermione's lip trembled as she suddenly dashed at Harry and threw her arms around him. Hermione, Harry, you're the greatest wizard I've ever known. You're a great wizard, you know. I'm not as good as you, said Harry, very embarrassed, as she let go of him. Me, said Hermione. Books and cleverness, they are more important things. Friendship and bravery and, oh, Harry, be careful. You drink first, said Harry. You are sure which is which, aren't you? Positive, said Hermione. Positive? She took a long drink from the round bottle at the end, and she shuddered. It's not poison, said Harry. No, but it feels like ice. Quick, go before it wears off. Good luck. Take care. Go! Hermione turned and walked straight through the purple fire. Harry took a deep breath and picked up the smallest bottle. He turned to face the black flames. Here I come, he said. He drank a little from the bottle in one gulp. It was indeed blue, though ice was flooding his body. He put the bottle down and walked forward himself, braced himself. He saw the black flames licking his body, but he couldn't feel them. For a moment, he could not see anything but dark fire, and then he was on the other side in the last chamber. There's already someone there, but it wasn't Snape, and it wasn't even Voldemort. And that is the end of chapter 16. Now I'll come back to read the last chapter to you in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Goodbye.